been before, and he's just regrouping.
Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. Supervisor De La Cruz will be here very shortly. I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting on December 17th, 2013. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Supervisor Rivas? Thank you. Can I have a motion for a certificate of posting?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Now is the time for public comment, and this is for items that is not on our agenda today. Can you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please?
First speaker is Rosa Gonzalez.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so my name is Rosa Gonzalez, and I'm with IHSS here in the county. I work here. I provide home care, and I'm here with the union, representing the union this morning. And we're here for our health care. And are you aware of our health care at all with our program?
We are.
Okay. So it will terminate as of December 31st. So there is money allocated for that particular cause of our insurance. We're going to be left without insurance as of December 31st, like I said. Those 60 cents, we're proposing that it be divided. We have a plan that just passed in 2 weeks in Santa Cruz, 20 cents going to dental, vision care, and the other 40 cents we're asking for to come as a wage increase for us. That's very limited to what we need, but that's what we're asking this morning, to reallocate that money to vision and dental immediately, and the extra 40 cents go to wage increase. I'd also like to say that, me myself, I'm a diabetic. I'm not going to have insurance after the 31st, which a lot of us are facing. But in the near future, we wish to continue with possibly finding in your budget for health care for us. What we do is a difficult job. We want to feel like we are recognized and we do have that dignity of what we provide, our service. So I'm asking now just to reallocate that 60 cents, 20 of it again going to dental and vision, and then 40 for the wage increase. Our wages are much lower than the surrounding counties. Monterey County has an excellent health care plan now, which we like to visit at some point. And again, just to keep in mind that if there is money in your budget, to think of us when, allocating that money. We are in need of health care. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker is Bolene Martinez.
Hello. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Belén Martinez. This is my daughter, Gina Martinez. We are residents here in Hollister. I'm a home care worker for my daughter, who has cerebral palsy. My health care benefits are expiring. My current health plan was a low-quality plan where I reach my annual limit of $25,000. That's the main reason why my health plan can't be continued. We need to figure out how to use over 60 cents per hour health benefit. I am disappointed, mad. I won't have any health care benefit from my job. I don't believe the county bargaining unit has bargained in good faith or timely manner. This shouldn't have taken weeks, like the 2 weeks it took to modify Santa Cruz IHSS home care provider's contract. This is unfair. We want our benefit. Deserve it. Where is it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Felicia Corona.
Good morning. I'm back here again. Thank you very much for listening. We need action from you. We need you to move forward, and with your help, because on January 1st, like she said, we have no insurance. She ran out of medicine some time ago, and so did I, but that's okay, we're fine. So please work with us, help us to get our insurance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I just want to take a moment, last meeting of the year, last meeting of the Board of Supervisors of the year, to thank the board for their indulgence of me coming here and bothering you every meeting.
You never do. Don't worry. We enjoy having you.
Well, thank you. I wish the feeling was mutual. No, it is. I enjoy coming here. That's why I come here. It gives me a chance to vent. My wife, when I went and retired many years ago, my wife said, "You have no hobbies. What are you going to do?" I found something to do. But I did want to take this opportunity to, in front of you, thank specifically the members of the county staff, from the elected officials down through the managers to the mid supervisors, down through the operators, to the workers, to everyone. During this year, as in every year, I am always bothering them for information. They've always been accommodating, taking time out of their busy schedule to look up whatever minuscule piece of information I think I need. They're always professional about it, no matter how busy they are, and they've always been forthcoming and honest about it. And I, having worked for a living for many years, I appreciate how difficult it is to have someone call up in the middle of your workday and say, "Hey, you know, maybe by tomorrow, if you can you find out this information for me?" So it's been a real education. I won't try to name everyone, because if I did, I'm bound to leave somebody out that I mean to include. I want you to know it's true of every single employee of this county that I've ever worked with. Every single one of them has been helpful, professional, and really open about giving me honest and complete answers. And I can't tell you how easy that makes it to have a trust in government. Not always agree with your decisions, but have a trust that whatever decision you make, even if I disagree with it, you're doing it because you have the best interests, what you think are the best interests at heart. You are wrong many times, but it's okay. We're all wrong many times. So I wish you all and all the employees of the county a Merry Christmas, a happy holiday, a happy New Year, and a great 2014. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty, and that's about the best presentation you've made all year long. But on behalf of the county, it is good to have those kind words for our staff because they do work hard and do want to serve the public to their full ability, and they do it day in and day out, and that was very well deserving. Thank you very much again. Any other speakers?
Yes, Al Vivas.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members, and the public that's here to enjoy their Tuesday morning. I'm here on behalf of the Gang Prevention Policy Committee, and just to recap, I first wanted to start out and just thank the county for being a partner in the Gang Prevention Collaborative. It's comprised of the county, the City of Hollister, Hollister School District, and also the San Benito County Office of Education. And the way it's organized is we have a Gang Prevention Policy Committee, and these members meet once a month. They participate in a strategic planning session, and throughout the year we're looking at issues surrounding gangs, violence, and how we could keep schools or students in their school. I'm also very privileged to have a management committee, which includes Ray Espinoza, Chief of Probation, Superintendent of Schools, and Superintendent of Hollister School District, who provide excellent advice and guidance. But today I'm here to recognize our representatives from the San Benito County that sit on the Gang Prevention Policy Committee. And our chairman of the policy committee this year has been Supervisor Robert Rivas, and also with him has been Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz. So I have a small certificate of recognition I'd like to present to both of them on behalf of the policy committee and thank them for their service, and we look forward to our ongoing partnership. So if you gentlemen wouldn't mind coming down here, please. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate your service. Mr. de la Cruz, appreciate your service. Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to wish everybody a happy holidays and a wonderful new year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Al. Thank you.
I don't have any other speakers.
Okay. Anyone else would like to address the board before I close the public comment? If not, I'll close the public comment and move to department head announcements. CAO Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have a few announcements today. The first one is concerning items 13 and 14. We actually discussed these particular items with our prior union representative, but the union has since raised a new issue concerning these. So we're going to have to continue item number 13 and number 14 to January meeting.
Okay.
Item number 6 and 7, there are actually a couple of typos I'd like to bring to the board's attention. Item 6, excuse me, the actual figure here is $18,046 instead of the $18,026 it's highlighted in the agenda, as well as in the AIT. And item number 7, it's $11,026 instead of the $18,026 displayed here in the agenda as well as in the AIT. So I want to make sure the board is aware of those two changes in the agenda and AITs. Item number 20, I was just informed that we need to actually pull that as well and continue that item to January from our Public Works Department. And today what I'd like to do is introduce a new employee from our Child Support Services. We have a new director, and her name is Jamie Murray. I've asked her to come and introduce herself to the board as well as to the public and say a few words. Jamie?
Welcome.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, public. I'm very pleased to be part of San Benito County. I look forward to learning more about the county and continuing to strengthen and enhance the child support services that we provide to the community and families in this county. I have over 20 years of experience in child support, in the child support program at the local and state level, and I believe my experience will help me to enhance the services that we can provide here.
Any questions from the board or comments? We just want to wish you the best of luck at your new job here in San Bernardino County. I hope you're here for a long time and is very successful.
Thank you very much. So I'll be splitting my time between Santa Cruz and San Benito, but I'm very excited to learn more about this county and the services that you offer here.
Okay,
Thank you.
We also have another, we have a department head announcement from our Public Works Director, Steve Wittry.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I just wanted to keep the board apprised of the situation with the Nash Road and high school negotiation. Last night's city council meeting, we did a presentation. We, being Public Works, did a presentation for looking for the city's willingness to continue the process to come up with some kind of arrangement for the transfer of property and the park situation over there. I'll put it this way: they're cautious about it. They don't want to correct or trade one problem for another problem. They did authorize the staff to work with our staff to try to move forward with something, but they also did make a very strong statement that they want to continue the negotiation process through the governance, the intergovernmental committee. So those who are on the intergovernmental committee can expect to have that on the agenda for the next few months to make sure that all the needs of the schools, the county, and the city are being met as they go forward to craft whatever process is going forward. So just that announcement.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just making sure our CAO, but he just nodded that he makes note that it's on the agenda for January.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And that's all the announcements that I'm aware of from the department heads.
All right. We'll move on to board announcements. Board announcements, Supervisor Rivas? No? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, I just want to thank my fellow members and our staff and the members of the community. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Supervisor De La Cruz. Supervisor Barrios?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to wish the community and the staff and the Board of Supervisors happy holidays, safe and healthy, and hopefully we will all have a wonderful new year, 2014. I did attend a meeting with CHISPA. It's a nonprofit organization that does affordable housing. And so they're really looking forward to a project that they have a plan for in San Benito County, and I'll be meeting with Byron just to help move it forward, and because they want to move it expeditiously. So it's a really great plan. And I want to thank Mr. Ridingsworth, the Director of Health and Human Services, who took the time to meet with me regarding his goals and the goals and objectives of the department. I appreciate the time you took to do that, and I think it's excellent leadership, and I look forward to working with him. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Wittry, the Public Work Department, and the road crew especially for putting up the Share the Road signs. They put them up on Fairview Road, John Smith, South Side, and I think a couple other roads. And I just want to make the public aware that this county is a county that bicyclists love to come and ride on our roads, and just to be aware of them and to be respectful of them and to share the road with them. And I appreciate the road crew getting those signs up. Also, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, and just a blessed new year as we go forward.
Great. Thank you. Myself, a couple weeks ago, was able to attend a RCRC meeting up in Sacramento, and informed the other rural counties of our dilemma with courthouse security. And as we do know, Calaveras County is experiencing, the same issues as we are, as well as San Diego County, but there are several other counties, rural counties, that are going to face the same issue as what we're incurring. And Tulare, Sutter, Yolo, Siskiyou counties were quite surprised by my revelation that, we're faced with additional costs to our general fund. Potentially, and I think that's grab some traction, or keep that issue alive at CSAC and at RCRC, and hopefully moved to the state for some legislative relief in time, and we also have that on today's agenda a little bit later. I think my life is complete now. I've been the grand marshal of a parade, and
Congratulations.
the San Juan Christmas parade. It was quite an honor to participate in that, and I know there's so many people out there that are very deservingly should have been a grand marshal, but I got to ride in one of the first units in a Thunderbird, which is the first time for me, and might be the last, but that's quite all right. I, too, met with our HSA director and Mr. Ridersword, and he outlined the goals and objectives, and we're real excited about the direction that we're going in, and I really appreciated the opportunity to sit down and meet with them and see what's going on in the department and the plans going forward into 2014. This will be a better year, absolutely. And since this is my last meeting as chair, I'm not speak too long on this. The next meeting we'll hold switch the chair around and be focused on 2014. But I really want to thank my colleagues on the board for their hard work this year. It was a challenging year, 2013, as we really didn't know what it would bring. We knew it was going to be tough. It has been. It required a lot of work from all of us on the board to attend several meetings and be active in our committees and get things done. And all of you did just everything that needed to be done. And I really appreciate the support, as well as our staff. Without their diligence, and I was happy that Mr. Richmond made the comments that he did during public comment. It doesn't. We can't be successful without you guys actually doing the work, and it was just far exceeded what I expected, especially in these challenging times when all of our departments are understaffed, and people have to, give 150% and more oftentimes, and that's probably have to continue in 2014. Some of the successes that we had this year with our new budget process, that really helped everybody. It was organized, it was professional. The department heads found it to be a lot easier time dealing with it, and that was led by the special meetings that we had in the first half of the year, going through how we were going to have this new process for the county. I felt a whole lot more comfortable with that, and CAO Espinoza deserves a lot of credit in getting that put together, and I think it's to be a new way how we proceed in the future with our budget, and it saved a lot of time and heartache. Fire consolidation was a huge success for all of us, and I hope it leads to further cooperations with our two cities and the county for other services that will lead to efficiencies and better service to the public that we're obligated to have. There's no question in my mind that San Juan would have lost a block if we had not have done that, so I want to thank our staff for the work that they did on that item, the fire departments, and everybody that's involved. I was very pleased that we got an oil ordinance done as well. And it's, some people might have been a little disappointed that it didn't go further as far as maybe preventing fracking in San Diego County, but it's a good ordinance that is more progressive than most counties in the state, and I'm optimistic that the state is going to do what they're supposed to be doing in regulating the oil industry. Supervisor Barrios and I brought forward the public defender contracts that is going to save, the county a tremendous amount of money going forward, and the work that the board has done on Parks and Recreation, and is really provides for a bright future for those type of services for our county. Got to have, and we're going forward with a great plan. And I was very pleased to see Supervisor Rivas and De La Cruz recognized for their efforts in gang prevention. That continues to be a real hard problem in San Diego County and our two cities, and it's continued to be an effort that we're going to make. A couple of areas that we have to do better on going into next year is we have to get the general plan done. And, I wish that I was able to push that a little bit harder in 2013. We weren't able to get that done, but hopefully next year it will be, as well as the Resource Recovery Park. I think it's an asset to this county, and once we get that project completed and start realizing the full potential of that, things will get better for the entire county. But with that, I want to thank everybody for the privilege of being chair in 2013. It was a great year for me personally to work in this capacity on the Board of Supervisors, and it's something I'll always remember. So thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Supervisors, you have anything to pull?
Mr. Chair.
Number
21? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to pull just for, I have one item on their budget on number 6 and number 7.
Oh, it's 6 and 7?
Yeah,
Pull?
they both
Okay.
relate to each other.
All right.
It's a very simple question. I should have asked Ray, but I was reading my agenda last night and I missed it. And I was not going to call Ray at 2 o'clock in the morning. So.
All right. Supervisor Barrios, you have anything?
No, I had 7, but it's been
Okay,
been pulled
great.
already, and number 20.
Any,
No, I'm sorry, 20 has been pulled.
Yeah,
There's
and I
another
got
one.
10 for you.
Number 12, I'm sorry.
12?
Number 12.
Okay. And anyone from the public would like to pull any of the other items that have not pulled at this point? All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion for the amended consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, hearing none. We'll go with item 6 and 7. Can
Yeah,
we do that together?
We could do them together because they both have the same thing.
All right. Supervisor De La Cruz.
So who's going to, James, you're going to?
Yeah, James. Morning.
I understand the concept of the grant money and the preparedness concept and have available material and supplies in case of a situation. The only question that I have is this service, 12-month service fee for 2 satellite phone items that's going to be available for the next 3 years at a monthly rate of about $55, which comes out to about $1,300 for this one and about the same for the other one. What happens? Who gets to use those phones in the meantime? Are they like locked away in an area whenever that phone rings, or whenever we need those phones, we get to use them? And then what happens at the end of the third year? Do those phones go to their prospective agency, or is there something that the health can use them? Because the way I understand this contract is once the useness of these inventories can revert back to the respective agencies. But phones, in my understanding, you can still use those kind of phones.
Okay.
So that's the only question I have. I should have
Okay.
called you yesterday.
That's a good question. My friend is going to help me here.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Efrain Gomez. I'm with Public Health Services, and I am the HPP coordinator for the county. And we have been providing funds to our HPP partners, Hazel Hawkins Memorial Hospital and San Benito Health Foundation, the ability to request funds to pay for their satellite communications, which is basically 2 phones for each entity, to complement the redundant communication systems. And these are all intended for emergency purposes, to make sure that they have a means of communication during a time of a disaster or an emergency in the county.
So are they in the closet then?
Yes, they are, and they're I guess they are. I mean, they have to be stored away, and they are the way they're set up. They have a service fee. One of the agencies pays a monthly fee. The other one uses air cards. They prefer the air card, which gives them a certain amount of minutes a year. So after the year is over, they have to purchase another air card. And if they did not use those minutes, then...
So I guess my question is, one, was this the best use available of these type of funds? You know, have a standby and available phone system, or, you know, there's got to be some systems out there with our technology where the moment an emergency kicks in, you can have a whole new system comes into place. And I just feel like we're just buying space, waiting for that moment to happen. I just wonder if there's another better and cheaper way to do this. That's all.
Right.
That's why I asked that.
That's a good question, and let me take that back to staff and let us talk about that and see if there are alternatives that we could look at for the future.
Yeah, because you could use some of that money for, like, you know, for Band-Aids and
Yeah.
things like that. That could.
Yeah, we will do that.
Okay, that's the only question, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Mine were just related to the amounts that our CAO brought up already, that the AIT, the numbers didn't match, but it's being addressed already, and so as long as those get corrected, I'm okay to move forward. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
when
Chair.
we take the motion, we'll make sure we state the motion and the correct amount in the motion. Any comments from the public?
Yes, I have Marty, or Marvin Jones.
Mr. Chairman, Board, what 911 consolidated last year? That's another attaboy for the board. You were mentioning items there.
Yeah.
That again.
Quite a few things that we
There were quite a few, and that was one that seems to be working very well. My comment on number 6 and 7 there, I thought Mr. Granger was going to address my question when he mentioned the $11,000 for the hospital. On your transmittal sheet, it says, you know, the 18,000, whatever the dollars are, and that the funding amount's 18,000. The budget amount was different for the two. This 18,000 for the San Benito agency, but it was only 11,000 for the hospital board, and I just wondered what happened to that $7,000. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. From Houston. My military experience is that the satellite phones are actually the best answer during an emergency because everything else but the satellite phones depends on some local connection, whether it's a tower or it's a wire or something. The advantage of satellite phones is that they're direct, and that's why the military uses them also for emergency services, because all you have to do is aim it and goes up the satellite, bounces down. The only thing I would just like to comment is the one weakness that I know exists in the system when you have the emergency phones like this is they tend to get put in the closet, and nobody pulls them out until the day the emergency happens. Then you find out the batteries are dead and they don't work. So I hope that whatever service plan they have includes preventive maintenance and periodic testing and training, because you have to know, maybe perhaps the model they have now, I guess everything's gone stupid, so you don't have to know anything, but it used to be with the satellite phones, you at least had to know how to aim the antenna at the appropriate satellite. You had to know how to get the azimuth on the satellite, so maybe these days you don't even have to do that. But I would, we tend to concentrate on hardware. I know I'm probably speaking to the choir for people who farm. You know you have to keep your equipment in shape. And for people who have emergency stuff, it gets stuck in a closet a lot of times and doesn't get pulled out until the day you need it, and then it doesn't work. So I hope that we have appropriate portions of this funding include making sure that we get to every month somebody charges the batteries, uses it, and especially if it requires training, that enough funds are diverted from the airtime to make sure that people get trained on the operation, set up and operation of satellite phones, because it's not always a slam dunk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and if we could make the motion separately for 6 and 7 with using the correct amounts, that would be appreciative.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve item number 6 with the new adjusted dollar figure.
No, what's with the
$18,000.
$18,046.
Okay.
Number 6. And approve, and motion to approve number 7 too with the new dollar amount of $11,026.
$26.
Okay, that'd be great. I have a motion.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Item 10, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question on I received a call from a constituent asking what the MADI EMS fund is and what the monies go to. So I just, if you can explain that too.
Yes. This was actually a fund that was started in 1989 and then was updated and re-signed in 2013, I think, this year by the governor. It's intended for pediatric trauma care, and which is basically what we know is a couple of things. One is that youth that suffer traumatic incidents in their life need a different kind of treatment than adults because they're not fully developed. And 2 is we know that trauma that occurs in youth, there's been lots of work done on this and over 30 years of study on it. Trauma that occurs in youth, if it's not taken care of correctly at that point in time, later on in life it results in greater cost. So to do it right and do it right the first time is the intention of the MADI funds.
And then the source of the $2?
This comes from court fines, and it's local money that stays locally, and we keep it in a separate account and keep a separate account of it. I believe I sent you that report.
Yeah, so all the money that is collected stays locally, goes to our local hospital districts and our
That's correct.
local doctors.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? If not, any questions or comments from the public? I'll bring it back for our board for a motion.
I'll move to adopt the resolution 2013-89 to continue the assess of an additional penalty of $2 for every $10 of fine, penalty, or forfeiture imposed and collected by the courts for all specific criminal offenses.
Okay. Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We'll move on to item 12, Supervisor Barrios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get to that item. On the list, it showed the different departments. It had a administrative office for December the 24th that would be closed from 12 to 5. But then there's nothing next to December 26th, nothing next to December 30th or December 31st. county council looks like they'll be closed December 27th. Is it that these two departments, these dates apply to both departments?
That's correct.
Okay, because I didn't see anything next to the dates. I was confused as to whether it really did apply to both of them collectively.
It was an effort to put this box and these two departments without repeating each one each time.
Okay.
Saving ink, possibly.
No, that's
just-
fine. I just want to make sure that it does apply to both the administrative office and county council for those dates from December 24th, noon to 5, and then the 26th through the 31st. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just needed clarification. There was no office named right next to the date. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Any other questions from the board? And I assume they're working on the 25th and 1st, right?
I
Bah
believe those
humbug.
would be recognized holidays.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I'll move to approve per staff recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. We'll move on to item 21, Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, I think this will be quick. I wanted to pull this item because I did have an offline discussion with Steve. But really why I pulled the item was to maybe get some education and some clarification as far as the second part of the item, which was to authorize the release of an RFP seeking development the proposals. And so maybe, Steve, if you can just educate me as far as that process, the RFP and the selection process.
Certainly. Essentially, what we'll be doing today is, if this item is approved, we'll be authorizing the release of an RFP to potential developers for that site. The RFP process, it's included in your packet. Basically, what we're asking for is a proposal from a potential developer as to what they plan on doing with the site. They will prepare it into an appropriate format that we can judge apples to apples. The proposals will be judged based upon a scoring criteria that's included in the RFP. Essentially, if you have a chance to look at page 350, the only thing, it's not only a monetary-based thing. There's other things that are in the scoring criteria to make sure that whatever is the successful proposer or developer, it's the best fit for the county. So the thought process we had is they would be received to the Public Works Office, proposal would be received to the Public Works Office at the end of January, at which time we hopefully have several to choose from, and we would go through and kind of rank those preliminary. We would then meet with the facility subcommittee and go over the results with them and looking for a recommendation to the overall board for approval of a successful developer proposal. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is see who's out there and then give the board the final opportunity to accept whichever they feel is the best fit for that particular site.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? I was happy Supervisor Rivas pulled that, and in our resolution, it recognizes a potential cost about $500,000 to clean up the property. How did we arrive at that figure, and do we, value that with, public type of work schedule, or if a private company and private owners could do it for half the cost?
So basically, when that figure came about during the process as we were going through looking at how we can revitalize and reuse the Public Works Planning and Sheriff's Department. As you recall, back in that time, which was about 3 years ago, we had several forks in the fire, I'll call them, as to how we were going to proceed. One was to reutilize that site for that future all-in-one permit center. Then we ultimately went with the Technology Boulevard process. During that fact-finding, we actually did a proposal, and we had a consultant come out and identify at that time the cost was a little north of $500,000 for doing that for a public agency, paying prevailing wages and going through the process. We've adjusted a little for inflation, where we get to $550. That's where the number comes from. There are certain requirements that whoever has ownership of the site will be required to do. They will have to dispose of the asbestos properly. They will have to go ahead and do that to the requirements of the state to make sure it's disposed of and dealt with properly. So there are certain protocols that even a private developer couldn't get around. However, they may not have to pay the prevailing wage aspect once it becomes their own property, so they may be able to do it a little cheaper. This would be the cost if the county was going to proceed with, our estimated cost, if the county was going to proceed with it under our own property and our own forces.
Okay, great. Yeah. Currently, the property is a liability to the county and an eyesore, quite frankly, and but it does have a lot of potential to be something really special under the right development. So that hopefully we get more than what we're asking.
I hope that too, Mr. Chair. If I could say that, you know, this is about the highest rating went for overall economic benefit to the county, and that could be included as part of the purchase price. But I think if somebody goes out there and does it privately, it's going to be a lot cheaper than the $550,000.
I honestly
And
think
so
so.
they can get a really nice piece of property for not a whole lot of money. But it is a lot of work, and I'm hoping there's interest and that we end up with something that will bring additional, an asset to the county, not that the county will own it, but the jobs, who knows where this will take us, but unless we go out there, we won't know. But I think it's a very good opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. Good morning. I'm Pat Lowe, and I would just urge you to reconsider this. This property is valuable to the county in the long run. That area out there is just where you need to put a major corporation, a new corporation yard. $500,000 is a lot of money. I absolutely agree with that. But that's what the Measure T funds are for one-time special things for the county that the county needs to move forward. This is short-sighted to get rid of this land right now. That land's available, I believe. You can hook up to city water, to city sewer. It's available for city services. The growth of this county, in 5-10 years, the county's going to need that land, and you're never going to be able to go out and purchase land for $500,000. So I would really, really urge you to consider cleaning that up and keeping it as county property. Supervisor Monaco and I had a long conversation about this yesterday, and we both agree that please consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public would like to address the board? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion or further discussion.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, and actually it's more of a comment because I know the answer to this. This is going to be made available to other agencies first in the county to see if there's an interest for instance, maybe County Office of Education, I don't know, there are several agencies that could have an interest. Is that correct?
Basically, yes, and we're actually required to notify certain agencies of that, schools and so forth, and we have done so. The response has been less than overwhelming from those agencies because of the daunting cost to rehabilitate the site. But we have made that offer to other agencies and other entities for the property.
And I appreciate the comment that prior Supervisor Lowe made. But I know that we, through the facilities, we have discussed this extensively and have decided that this is probably the best way for the county to move forward. It is a lot of money. Is the money available to us to easily go in there and raise this property and dispose of all the, I'm sure there's a lot of contamination there, and
Through the last couple budget cycles, we've had this item on our list of capital projects, but it's not been funded because there is not enough funding available for that particular renovation or cleanup effort. That's one of the things that's actually been very concerning to me as I go through the budget process because of the liabilities that it does pose out there. We have, as Chair Patella pointed out, it's almost at the point of every other week or every week we have a break-in out there where there's some more vandalism happening out there. We've had the windows barricaded up with boards. They've broken through those. We've put chain link fence. They've cut through that. It's really becoming a situation that needs to be addressed with it in the near term. Looking at the budget funding that we have and it's been allocated for capital projects and the priorities that the board has had, there really isn't that money available at this point in time to address it in the near term. At some point, maybe there would be, but at this near term, there isn't. And the reality of it is it's only a matter of time before something serious happens out there that's going to cause us great difficulty as a community, more than likely.
And Supervisor Patello and I have visited it. It's horrible. That would have been a beautiful site for, maybe the homeless. There were a lot. It had a lot of potential, we thought, until we actually saw what was happening there and all the liability, as you say, with the contamination that is there. So I think we're making the right decision in moving forward. Now, this is not final. Once we get those RFPs out there, those have to come before us to approve to make sure that the project that somebody's wanting to do there is really conducive and that it really is going to bring us economic benefits. So we'll have another opportunity to do that.
And just to expand on that, basically, once we see what's out there, this is another decision point that will come once the RFPs come back. Another decision point will come to the board to determine how they want to proceed. And just one other thing, because I know there's a lot of folks from the Homeless Coalition who have looked at that site for one reason or another. And the difficulty there that we looked at with the Homeless Coalition was that its proximity to the high school that sits out there on the property as well. There's a certain distance that the homeless folks need to be away from public schools, and there's a public school on the backside of the continuation school over there, and that caused difficulty. So they may be able to fashion something, but that was another thing in terms of the shape of the existing building was not conducive to what they wanted to do, and then the distance and proximity to the school also caused them difficulty.
It has a beautiful site. From there, when you're up there, as we saw, you've got a beautiful view of the surrounding of the city, and so maybe somebody will do something really special with that. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes. Any other comments from the board? I pretty much concur with Supervisor Barrios. I do appreciate what former Supervisor Lowe and Supervisor Monaco concerns are, that it is tough for the county to acquire land. But at this point in time, we have so many other projects that we have, pending, the courthouse remodeling, and the new jail, and there's surplus property out there on Flynn Road, and we have other areas too. And this property, we walked through it a few months ago, and it was absolutely appalling. If this was held in private hands, we would be issuing cleanup orders if it was held in private hands, because it is a liability to the public at this point in time. It's been, and it's just a matter of time before something happens. And I don't see where we have the funding available to go in and do the demolition and keep it as surplus property for quite some time. So I think we're going down the right path that allows us to maybe do some of our other capital projects that are more pressing. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt resolution number 2013-91, resolution of intent to sell the surplus real property located at 3110 Southside Road and containing the former Southside the Convalescent Hospital, and authorize the release of an RFP seeking the development proposals.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? We'll move on to the regular agenda. CEO Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on a regular agenda this morning, item number 23, and this item is going to be presented to us by our Director of COG, Lisa Reinheimer. and she's going to be presenting to you an update on the San Bernardino County Route 156 improvement project. Lisa?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Supervisors, staff, and guests. My name is Lisa Reinheimer, Executive Director of the San Benito Council of Governments, and I am here today, this morning, to give you an update on the San Benito Route 156 project. And it really represents a partnership between the San Benito Council of Governments, Caltrans, the county, as well as the city of Hollister. It began in earnest in 1997 when Caltrans started putting together a project study report which identifies the cost, scope, and schedule. And then in 2001, collectively, we began starting traffic impact fees for the project, recognizing that 60% of the traffic in the project area is generated by the city of Hollister and the county in the Hollister and Greater Hollister area. The project improvements will benefit us now currently as well as into the next generation in terms of safety, travel time, reliability, and predictability. In addition, the project will create jobs in the short term. However, those short-term boost really pales in comparison to the long-term benefits to the community in terms of that travel time reliability as well as vehicle operating and accident cost savings. So what I've done here today is I've invited Richard Rosales, who is the project manager from Caltrans District 5, to answer some questions that you may have on the project, including what is the project, when will it be under construction and open to the public, what is the county's involvement in the project in terms of financial involvement as well as from a practical standpoint, and then answer a question about what happened to the lawsuit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Richard Rosales, who will hopefully answer all those questions for you, and then there will be an opportunity, of course, to ask questions at the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board of Supervisors, for having me here today. My name is Richard Rosales with Caltrans. As Lisa mentioned, I'm the project manager for the Route 156 improvement project. I'm going to provide a presentation on a quick PowerPoint. It may look familiar to some of you because we presented this at the COG board a few months ago. Basically, I'm going to provide an overview of background and history of the project, some of the relationships, litigation and the settlement that was reached, project details, where we're at on the project, what's our next steps, and then answer any questions you may have. The traffic impact fees were committed back in 1993 from the city and from the county, who's collecting those from developments that occur through their jurisdiction. This project was put into the regional transportation plan of COGS in 1994. And we also, Caltrans wrote a project study report that identified the needs of the project in 1997. 1998, it was adopted into the State Transportation Improvement Program, and funding was committed at that time. Between 1998 and 2008, we were committed on developing the environmental document for this project, which consisted of environmental impact report and finding of no significant impacts. That's a long time, 10 years. The reason for that was when we began the project, we got into it and discovered that there was some omissions of flood issues and drainage in the original project study report. So we had to take a step back and look at our previous designs and adjust for that. And in 2011, we finished our supplemental EIR, and that was based on the lawsuit that was generated on the original CEQA document, the Environmental Impact Report, in 2008. In May of 2012, there was a consensus building workshop that some of you attended. I attended as well, that outlined some consensus on what that project should look like and build upon that. From that, resolutions were passed from the city, from the county, and letter of support, I think, from the city of San Juan Bautista, outlining that consensus building for what this project should look like. The financials on the project, overall, the project in total, including from inception through construction, is about $81 million. Of that, 76% is that would be from Caltrans, and city and county is collecting the traffic impact fees totaling $9.6 million, which will be used towards the construction of the project, so the construction capital. And also the COG has committed $9.6 million in their regional share of the State Transportation Improvement Program. So as you can see, there's a partnership there with the funding. We really appreciate that partnership. It goes a long ways in leveraging our monies for the project when we present that as a project need, and can illustrate that there is a local partnership involved in the project. Now, as we mentioned about the traffic impact fees, those are collected for impacts, to mitigate impacts of local developments. And some of those local developments are mentioned here. I think they're both in the city and county. Award Homes, Creek Bridge, and Santana Ranch. So those traffic impact fees are collected for the Route 156 improvement project. You're going to total $9.6 million. Some of the other improvements that are happening in the county and an adjacent county in Monterey are the Prunedale Improvement Project, the San Juan Interchange Project, and then to the west in Santa Clara County, the 152, 156 flyover, which I believe is, I think that's in design. And then there's the future Route 152. And how does this work with the relationships of our Route 156? In 2000, from 2000 to 2010, there was a census study done that displayed the journey to work. And as you can see from this graph, there's a 5% decrease in workers traveling from San Benito County to the Bay Area, and a 5% increase from San Benito County to Monterey County. So that kind of ties in nicely with the need, shows the need for the 156 improvement project, as well as the projects that are ongoing in Monterey County, such as the Prunedale Improvement Project and the San Juan Road Interchange Project. So as time goes on, there's this increased pressure on 156 for due to the amount of traffic. It's heavily traveled during the AM and PM peaks. There's a need for safety improvements. Drivers are frustrated when they're delayed. Sometimes they take risks pulling out in front of ongoing traffic. And then there's that conflict between slow-moving vehicles such as ag vehicles and trying to get onto the mainline traffic. Now, let's talk a little bit about the litigation. As I mentioned before, in 2008, we were sued on the environmental document. From that was born the supplemental environmental document, and we were also, again, sued on that, on that document. We entered into settlement with the, or we entered into mediation, I should say, with the petitioner, Save the San Juan Valley. From that mediation, we were able to come up with a settlement. And the settlement was approved in June 2013. That settlement included the installation of a cable median barrier. So down the median of the expressway, where we have 46-foot median width, we will install a cable barrier. We will consider future roundabouts on this route on other projects. The former San Justo School is being planned to, or there's talks to potentially move that school or move that residence, a former school. And if that happens, and there was a timeline outlined in our settlement, if that happens, then we would redesign the project to bring the expressway closer to the existing highway. So, in essence, designing the highway through where the school now sets, or the resident now sets. The outline for that timeline from the petitioner was they need to get back to Caltrans by March of 2014 to let us know if they're able to move that house, if the property owner is willing. And by the summer of 2014, have it moved. And the reason for those timelines is we need to have time to, redesign it, go out and acquire that property, and do all that whole process, and then also look at our environmental document and provide a reevaluation of those effects, of those changes. So it's all, we said we can do it if the timeline was met.
Can I ask a question right here, Mr. Rosales?
Sure.
Now, how much, is there any flexibility with that timeline, as the efforts are still ongoing with acquiring or persuading the property owners to move their residence to the old school? Is there trigger points along with other issues in design, possibly if Caltrans has fallen behind on one other design aspects? Would that timeline be extended or being considered to be extended if we're pretty close to getting that accomplished?
I can't say today, but I can check on that. What it boils down to is we need our time to make these changes to stay within our commitments for our funding. So that's the critical timeline, as well as have enough time to process the change in purchasing of land.
Yeah, and the significance of that school, just so everybody understands, is there's a significant amount of farmland that would have to be probably purchased by Caltrans and set in idlement if that school remains, because the highway is to be on the south side of and run quite a length on the south side of that property, this old school. And if we're able to bring the school out of the picture, it's a save a significant amount of farmland, better than 50 acres, and move the highway closer to the proposed frontage road or access road, and that should lower the cost of the project overall. The state doesn't have to purchase the additional 50 acres and also mitigate the additional 50 acres, and so it's really should benefit the whole project if that's accomplished.
I'll have to get back to you on that timeline. I mean, not sure. I haven't heard from the petitioner on that aspect of, how is it going?
And I know we're the folks that are working on that are still kind of working on the negotiations of how that could be accomplished. But
I think that March deadline was to let us know that, yes, it's going to happen, and then they, working with the county on getting permits or whatever's required to actually move that residence. So that's what that March timeline was, and I believe the summer timeline was, to get the house moved so it's vacant, and then when we do our appraisal, we're appraising it as a vacant piece of property, not a piece of property with a house on it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And then lastly, part of that settlement was the agreement of utilizing the existing highway as a multi-use roadway and access road, or multi-use path and access road. And we've already met with the county staff, Mr. Witry, to discuss the, how would that be accomplished. And that'd be accomplished on a separate county project. It wouldn't be accomplished on this 156 improvement project. The money that we would have used to bring the highway to a state of good repair, that money could be transferred over to the county for that use. So we still have some work to do on that. We plan to meet again to go over the details of that and go over what's going to constitute a state of good repair on that highway when we relinquish it to the county. Now, the basic project purpose is to reduce congestion. The highway is over capacity right now, so it'll provide for future traffic needs. It's definitely going to improve safety by separating traffic, and it will improve route continuity. When I talk about route continuity, what I mean by that is to the east of this project and to the west of this project, we have access-controlled expressway. So drivers' expectation is they know where traffic's going to be pulling out in front of them, and that's usually at a county road. Whereas this section, this 5-mile section of conventional highway, traffic can pull out anywhere along that highway. And then the need is, as I mentioned, increasing congestion. There is a lack of passing opportunities, just a 2-lane highway. We double-striped it. We put a centerline rumble strip down the middle for safety. There's the need to move the conflicts between trucks and ag vehicles. We have a non-standard curve at Union. And there's, as I mentioned before, the route continuity, which is the continuous expressway. And there's a history of some flooding out there in certain sections of the highway. And a picture's worth 1,000 words, so you can see the congestion, signalized intersection at Union, where we're going to fix the compound curve, and the ag vehicles on the route. Now, the project actually starts from the Alameda to just past the 4th Street Business Route 156, which is at the sewer treatment plant. And we'll be carrying 4 lanes of expressway all the way through from the Alameda to just past that last intersection signal at 4th Street and Business Route 156. Some of the details are, this route is designed for no more than 20,000 vehicles, so it gets congested after that amount. And 2014 expected 29,000 daily traffic on this route, and that's a level of service F, which is pretty bad. So it's a lot of congestion. As I mentioned before, 4 new lanes of expressway with a 46-foot median. We plan to handle some drainage between the fence line and the edge of road and some side ditches. Very flat ditches, 4-to-1 slope, so if you were to exit the roadway for some reason, it's a gentle slope going down, so there's you'd be able to recover. The existing route, as I mentioned, Highway 156 becomes a multi-use recreational trail and access road. That'll be in county's jurisdiction. And as I mentioned before, we plan to put a cable median barrier down the 46-foot median section. Here's a picture showing how a barrier would work with a large truck. And there's different types of cable median barrier. This is just one shown. I think we give the contractor the option of 3 or 4 different vendors. Some of the details that were calculated early on and for cost benefits are shown here. Where we at? We expect to finish all our acquisitions by November 2016. We're probably about a month or 2 behind on beginning that. We've almost finished delineating our appraisal maps for this section. We're going to hold off on that section where the former San Justo School is until we hear back from the petitioner. But all the other locations where we need to acquire land, we're going to pursue those. We should be out making appraisals at the beginning of the year and then contacting the property owners at that time. We're currently in design for the contract plans. We plan to have 60% plans done by April of this coming year and finishing that up totally by January 2017. So we go to construction summer of 2017. It's a 2-year construction, and we would complete that in 2019. I did want to mention that I will be coming back to this board in the near future for updating agreements that we have with the county, which the agreement that we do have on the books is a freeway agreement for this section. We're going to be down scoping that freeway agreement to a controlled access highway agreement. So, all the words about a freeway will be taken off that agreement. It will be a controlled access highway agreement. All this, what it does is it updates our agreement with the county. It shows where the connections are for openings to public roads on this controlled access portion of the route.
Okay. All right. Any questions by the board? Supervisor De Cruz?
No, right now, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Richard, in your presentation, you mentioned the 152 and 156 flyover, and I thought you said something about that was in a design stage now. Are you?
I confused my projects. I was thinking 101 in my
Okay, I
my
was wondering
brain.
if that's what you were thinking about.
When the 152, 156 has been built, a few years back.
So just more clarification.
Thanks for
on
that correction.
And then the other point, I was hearing that through the settlement that the roundabouts were off the table on the 156, but in your presentation, you said that Caltrans had agreed to consider those on a future.
On future projects, if there's a development that that comes along that wants to propose a change, then we'll take a look at that. If we have a future project in this area on 156, we'd certainly take a look at that intersection control, change in intersection control, but not on this project because we looked at that already and determined that the roundabout would not function for that 20-year span at Union.
Okay, so the roundabouts on this project are off the table.
Correct.
But you will consider roundabouts in other situations on the state
Yes.
route. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions or?
Just some comments, Mr. Chair, if I could. Thank you. On the former school, it sounds like there could be, if it isn't moved, there could be a safety issue because you've got travel on both sides of the school. Is that correct? Is that the way I understand? If it doesn't get moved, you will have a road in front of it and a road behind it?
But there would be no access to the expressway from that house.
So that
no.
it would go from that residence to the frontage road, so to speak.
Right. Our fence would go right up against his back fence, and there would be no access there.
Okay. But there would be greater loss, if it doesn't get moved, there would be greater loss of ag land. by keeping it in the location that it is now?
What it does is, if that house was to be moved and we were able to realign the expressway, it moves the highway closer to the existing highway, or the expressway closer to the existing highway, and that allows that piece that was going to be in between that, sandwiched in between it, that gets put back on the larger piece of ag land.
Of
So it'll
ag
be,
land, I
yeah.
see. So then it would just incorporate it with it, and so, yeah, in essence, we would save some
Yeah,
ag land.
I mean, for farmability, it'd be a much nicer piece, you know,
Yeah.
because it'd be contiguous with the larger piece.
And there would be dollar savings as well by moving it, as far as the construction part of it?
I think it'd be pretty much similar. There'd probably be some savings in the, probably in the ag sector of it, because we would be leaving a remnant, a remainder. I did hear from the property owner that he would still farm that, though, so it's still farmable as if it was to remain, if the house was not moved. They would still be farming that, from what I was told by the property owner.
And I'd like to get a report, Mr. Chair, if we could, and see how this is, the negotiations, or whatever you want to call them, are moving forward. Because it sounds to me like if you're going to have the design by April, time is of the essence to know what you're going to do with that part of it, so that the design can continue. So if there's a way that we can keep us posted.
Yes, yes. Well,
I
I
can-
know I certainly want this board and this county to be integral part of this process and this design, because I disagree with Mr. Rosales as far as whether that's a farmable piece or not. I haven't heard anybody who's interested in farming, and maybe he has, and God bless him. But there's problems with moving equipment across there. There's problems with water. There's problems with spraying. And those are big operations. That how that land is being cut is that from the access road, it's a pretty narrow strip. The people that are farming on the north may not be farming the same property on the south, and it's not as easy as, oh yeah, we'll just farm that. That's like farming the middle of Highway 5 as you go down Highway 5, the middle, farm the middle of that. And we'll see. History will either prove Caltrans correct on that or my concerns correct.
Well, I just consider this such a critical project that needs to be done. It needs to move forward as quickly as possible for safety primarily. And so my hope is that there'll be some sort of agreement so that we can move forward with it. So
Well, I think it's a move forward at this point in time. The
And
project is a move forward.
it's going to move forward no matter what. Yeah, but
Yeah.
anybody that says government works slow, it's only going to take us 22 years from the time we started to the time it's completed. Piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
What's 22 years? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and I imagine everyone, I'll never like this project. I don't think it solves anything. I think it's from one stoplight to the next, and it's just kind of changed our county tremendously as far as productive agriculture and the cost benefits. I know some real smart Caltrans engineer figured that out, but they did not take into account the loss of productive ag commodities into that cost benefit and subtract that out, which is the correct way of doing a true cost benefit. But it's all a smoke screen, propaganda. The project is a move forward. We certainly want to make every effort in the world to try to resolve the school issue so that at least less farmland is consumed in the operation. Another area I think where Supervisor Barrios is correct as far as the design and the report that you're come back with, Mr. Rosales, is the Bixby Road intersection, which is kind of a midpoint in the valley, and I think that would be an access point onto the expressway, and for property owners and farmers and operators to get across from the north side to the south side. And the designs and meetings that I've attended I've expressed concern about that safety there, and I'm not convinced that it's taken a full account as far as what really needs to go across when there's traffic going 70, 75 miles an hour on an expressway, and you got a tractor with a trailer that's 65 feet long going across. It's concerning to me, and I'm hoping that the final designs will take that into account. That might have been a good spot for a roundabout just to break up and slow down the traffic, but I don't think this is a congestion-moving project. And the mitigations on the ag, the one-to-one ag preservation, just for the record, if you can't find anything here that's cost effective, the Caltrans would just go ahead and take that ag mitigation requirement anywhere in the state.
Correct. We'd be looking for willing sellers for this ag easement, preservation ag easement in this county first. And if we cannot find the willing sellers, we have the opportunity to look elsewhere in the state. Correct.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this project is a move forward at this point in time, and hopefully we could work with Caltrans to, develop, an access road or a frontage road that is not a hazard to property owners through the middle of San Juan Valley as well. And maybe we could connect a bike trail from San Juan Bautista to the river park, and that could possibly be a very positive thing. But I'm not looking forward to the groundbreaking. But anyway,
I am.
you could go.
You're still being invited.
Anyone in the public would like to comment?
Thank you for your presentation. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I did not support this project at any cost or at any design. I was one of the first ones to come up here and say I had concerns about the flooding. I think you remember that. And I'm glad Caltrans has addressed the flooding. But the idea that we can do it without sacrificing something is impossible. I'm really going to be angry if my wife gets run over by a head-on semi on that road. I am really going to be angry. And I think I've been fortunate enough not to have an accident, but I think if there's somebody sitting in a wheelchair in this county because they've been hit head-on on that road, and I don't have to be politically correct like Caltrans and say something about it's rated A or it's rated B or it's rated C, it's rated D. I can tell you this, it's a death trap, that road. That's all it is right now, being 2 lanes. And I get in arguments with you, Mr. Chairman, all the time, even though I say nice things about you sometimes, occasionally. I don't get it. You're worried about the agricultural farming. You're not worried about getting your agriculture to market. Those trucks full of agriculture are coming down that road every day. That's all they're full of. During the season, that's all it is agriculture trucks. And those guys, many of them have been cheating on their log books. We all know that. How many hours they've been driving. I mean, the CHP has the records. Many drivers, because of economic pressures, are living on amphetamines. I'm not trying to belittle them. They're trying to make a living. Some of them are just tired because they're running 2 jobs. And all they have to do is fall asleep for 1 second on that road, and they kill everybody. Or what happens is they just don't pay attention for 1 minute, and somebody pulls out from one of those straight-on side streets where there's no room because they've been sitting there for 20 minutes trying to get across, and the guy in the truck reacts the wrong way, swings his wheel over, and runs head-on into somebody in a van. This is ridiculous. The entire agricultural crop value in this county, if I remember the agricultural report, was like $300 million, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it was a record, and I'm glad to have it. The commuters here bring in $750 million a year, according to the federal government. If we didn't have those commuters, our average income here would be $44,000 a year. It's all synergistic. People come up here this morning and they say, you know, we made a deal with Santa Cruz in 2 weeks. Well, the people in Santa Cruz County have got a public income at their county like 4, 5, 6 times ours per capita. And all we're doing is every day that 156 doesn't get fixed, that's another day we got to live in poverty, and it's another day we got to send our kids in fear up that road. I've had enough of it. 22 years, that's enough. We've already blackmailed the hell out of Caltrans.
You got,
Thank you. I will conclude by saying we've already blackmailed the hell out of Caltrans. Now we're going to let everybody else blackmail them too on moving stuff. Hey, let's get the road in. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I went over.
Anyone else? Okay, that was a report, and I think for the record, I think that was kind of unfair for the, the long haulers and the trucks. I don't think there's any documentation or records of trucks crossing over and having head-ons on 156, and there's quadruple the deaths on 152 because of the hazards of that road. But this county's moving forward to have this 156 improvement. If it wasn't for the litigation, there would be no divide where that would prevented crossover traffic. That was a good thing that came out of that the Save the San Juan Valley group, that they were able to negotiate in the settlement. Otherwise, you would have the crossovers, and there's documentation that supports that. So, but I appreciate the comments. We'll move on to the next item. CEO Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on regular item number 24 of our agenda. And this item's been brought to our board a few times over the last month or two with regards to security in our courthouse, or the new courthouse that we have across the street, and the need to add more security. And during the times, during the last few months, the ad hoc facility committee has met on more than one occasion, met with the courts to discuss ways to be able to bring new or additional security into that building. So today, what we're doing is we're going to come into your board to discuss this. We have Sheriff Thompson here to discuss that, as well as Gil Solario from the courts, to kind of highlight some of the conversations that we've had and to look at ways of actually going out to bring more security in. So, Sheriff Thompson?
Well, good morning and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On November 19th, 2013, you heard a presentation from the Superior Court Executive Officer Gil Solario with us today, and my captain, Don Bradley, with regard to the status of the new courthouse construction project. At the meeting on November 19th, we discussed security services and collectively expressed serious concern about the state's inability to increase our court security funding to match the increase in the court security needs. My office has continued to and will continue efforts to locate gap funding to relieve the funding of the extra positions needed to run the new courthouse. These efforts have included and will continue to include negotiations with local courts, request for assistance from the California State Sheriff's Association, California State Association of Counties, and continued conversations with our local legislators. I am happy to report that at the state level there is now a confirmed recognition of the issue counties with new and more secure courthouses are experiencing in regards to staffing those facilities. The conversation in Sacramento seems to have picked up considerably about this topic. We will continue our efforts to encourage the appropriate state departments to resolve this issue budgetarily or legislatively or both. But today, I actually bring some good news. Since our November board meeting, Supervisor Botello, Supervisor Barrios, our CAO, my office, and the courts have met to discuss possible solutions for funding this year's shortfall. And I want to say this, at the risk rather of being sappy and emotional, we live in one of the most wonderful communities that anyone could ever wish to live. I am truly honored to live and work in a community that works so hard together to find solutions to the problems that we all face. Today, I'm very pleased to report that our local court has proposed to contribute the funds to solve this year's problem and offset the funding shortfall currently estimated through the end of our fiscal year. However, in order to formulate an accurate calculation, I first need to work with the courts to determine an appropriate, or at least an adequate, security staffing plan. My next point may be a point of education for the board and for those that are listening. Government Code Section 69-926, parentheses B, states this: the sheriff, with the approval and authorization of the Board of Supervisors, shall, on behalf of the county, enter into an annual or multi-year memorandum of understanding with the Superior Court, specifying an agreed-upon level of court security services and any other agreed-upon governing or operating procedures. Today, I'm here to respectfully request the board's consideration and authorization for me to do two things. The first is to explore staffing and cost options that will provide an adequate level of security at the new courthouse. My second request is to develop a memorandum of understanding in collaboration with the court, consistent with Government Code Section 69-926B, including language that documents the sheriff's level of security staffing at the new courthouse, as well as the court's amount of contribution to offset that funding shortfall. Upon completion, the memorandum of understanding will be submitted to your board for consideration and hopeful approval. This concludes my portion of the presentation. Mr. Solorio, did you have anything to add today?
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Sheriff. Any more, CAO Espinoza, you have anything to add to the Sheriff's presentation?
No, I don't.
Supervisor Barrios?
No, I just would like to move forward with that. I think it's critical in the position the state has put us in for us to explore ways of addressing this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Fellow board members, any questions, comments? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff, what's the shortfall for this year's budget that the court's going to help us out with?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer that concisely. We must
Estimate.
we must first establish the appropriate level of security needed and determine our cost options. But we believe it's going to be somewhere between 125 and 300,000.
Okay. So it'll be over 100 for sure.
It'll be over 100 for sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any other questions? No. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for direction.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we explore staffing and cost options to give the sheriff the authorization to explore staffing and cost options that will provide an adequate level of security at the new courthouse and develop a memorandum of understanding with the Superior Court that is consistent with Government Code 69926B.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Solario. We're going to take a 7 or 8 minute break.
You read my mind. I wasn't gonna walk out on you. I just said, I'll take a break.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight a couple things. I was going to have Georgia also highlight. But basically, it's just tomorrow. If she's here, it'd be great. Yeah, I'm not sure if she's here. I'm not sure if she's here or not. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I just, yeah.
Okay. I'll call the meeting back to order, and we're continue on to item 25. CEO Espinosa, want to introduce that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this item's our last item on the regular agenda, and this will be presented to us by our interim planning director, Byron Turner. And again, we were coming to your board really at every board meeting to discuss the general plan, if there's any updates. And there has been an update, so Byron's going to go ahead and discuss that with us.
Thank you. Yes, on July 9th, earlier this year, the board gave staff some direction with regard to the general plan update. That direction was to terminate the contract with Interior Harnish, to put out a request for proposal for local consultants, and to prepare that scope of work to include revising the policy document, revise the draft environmental impact report, recirculate if necessary, prepare the final environmental impact report, and provide assistance to staff with regard to completion of this project. The staff received 2 responses to the RFP, and of the 2 firms, the planning department found that the proposed consultant, EMC Planning Group, has the most local California county general plan update experience at a competitive price. So we have a proposal before you today. The proposal is to make modifications to the general plan update document, to revise the draft environmental impact report and recirculate it, and it also provides staff support for meetings, staff reports, presentations, et cetera. As we discussed in previous meetings, one of the first actions that will be taken should we move forward with this contract is to have a joint meeting, after meeting with staff, after reviewing the materials, but then have that joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the board to discuss the future of this project and make sure that all players are on the same page and moving forward. The timing of the proposal is, from the notice to proceed, is 280 days to get to the finish line, to get to the hearings for approval. Obviously, there are many things that can create speed bumps to that, but that is what is in the proposal today. A component of the consultant contract is deferring a portion of the payment through the general plan fee recovery ordinance, which we will have to you early next year, but up to 25% of the total payment, the total cost of the general plan update could be deferred and paid through as we collect that general plan fee update as when we enact that ordinance. The less changes made to the document, the less the cost will be. The consultant is aware of the amendments that were requested by the board and by staff in the past. Additional amendments that have not been identified will have an unknown impact across the entire process, a ripple effect across the entire process. So it's important to be aware of the contract is based on directions that have been given by the board prior to September of 2013 and does not reflect necessarily landowner requests or anything that's going to come in the future. So with that said, Michael Groves, from the president of EMC Planning Group, is here to answer any questions if you have them. Staff is recommending that the board approve the contract for the general plan update phase 2 professional planning consultant services with EMC Planning Group in the amount not to exceed $200,000, and authorize the chair to sign the contract, and authorize the planning director to make minor amendments authorizing additional work within the 10% of the contract contingency amount not to exceed $20,000. And I am here, and the president, Michael, is here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Supervisor Rivas?
Well, I think the one question or concern, I'm not sure if we should address it after our public comment, is obviously price tag. I think I had expressed concern to you, and the reason I mentioned it now because my supervisor here reached over to me and said, "Was it really 200,000?" I said, "I think it's all on. I think it's a valid question to ask: is why so much money?"
I think that's a good point, and you have an outline of scope of services and timelines, and the previous work from Harnish and Mittner was that incomplete. I'm taking it as that it wasn't even half done almost.
The general plan document is, in my opinion, is very close to being a finished product. It's the environmental impact report and the recirculation and the changes to mitigation measures that need to be made there. That's where the bulk of the work comes in.
I know. What's the total investment do we have in this project up to this point in time?
I believe it's around $1 million, a little more.
Yeah, it almost feels like it's $1.2 million already before this, but it's a lot of money. And I'm sorry, Supervisor Rivas, did you have more?
No, I mean, yeah, and that was a question, is the 200,000 really kind of, you know, it popped out at me. And so I know we were just here last year, we said no more than 50,000 or no more than 100,000. It's like, well, way beyond that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's unfortunate that it's, that we're at this place, but certainly the general plan needs to get done. So,
Yeah.
and apparently at any cost. So, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor De La Cruz, you were saying something.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. When Byron was talking, and when he said 200,000, look at Supervisor Rivas, I go, 200,000? And I go, well, we got to get it done. You made a commitment when you got elected chair that it will be done in 2013, and I hope that the next chair coming in says the same thing.
It's going to be done.
Okay. I'll remind you, just like right now. Okay. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Yeah, it like I noted this morning, that it's one of my greatest disappointments that we're still working on this, and looking at the task completion schedule, just to prepare the revised draft final EIR is 280 days, and I'm reading that as it's be impossible by the time you do the comments and certify the EIR that you could do it by the end of 2014. Is that a valid assessment?
Again, the goal is to get it done next year. That's 280 days is the time frame from the word go. That was laid forth in the contract, but as I said, any time we make a change, when the public requests a change, the Planning Commission requests a change, the board requests a change, that has a ripple effect across the entire document. And so every change that we make, you need to see what other areas that impacts, and that can throw the time frame back.
With that comment being made, the consultant is aware that there are some changes already expected to be made, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not going to be a surprise. It's only if we have to address from the beginning if there are going to be identified any other changes, so that we know up front what it.
One of the things that we're going to do at the very beginning of this process is identify if there are any other changes that need to be made. Okay. Because the consultant is not going to embark on completing the environmental impact report until we have closed the door on.
Good.
Now we have the document that we want, that everyone's comfortable with or comfortable enough with, and then we will move forward with the environmental document.
And I think that is an excellent approach. I mean, that is the only way to approach this now at the 11th hour. So I just want to say, Mr. Chair, that I think the consultant is committing to us not only on a timeline, but also in making sure, like you said, that everything we want is in there from the beginning, and we don't come back 4 months into the process and say, oh, guess what? We want this other landowner has requested. Right. We don't want to do that. We need to, as supervisors, say, okay, if you don't make these meetings at the beginning, we're done, because this has to be completed. And I really like the flexibility, primarily of the payment part of it. I know it is a lot of money, but I'm going to hold them to it. I'm hoping that we can keep under that not to exceed amount, but that they're giving us the opportunity to collect, if we complete our ordinance on the general plan fee, which I think we need to really put ourselves on a timeline that gets done, because this consultant is willing to wait for us, but we need to have that in place. So I'd like to put pressure on ourselves to get that done ASAP. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? I guess I have just one. Now, I'm not sure if you could answer it, Mr. Turner or the CAO, but the 200,000, is that just come out of our contingency?
Yeah, there has been discussions with the planning department and administration, and that's where the funds are going to have to come out of, is that a contingency.
Okay. Well, it's still a real hard pill to swallow. Was it ever evaluated, possibly, Byron, that if we save some of that cost and if we staffed you with another associate planner or something and they would work real closely with this general plan task, just so you have somebody else in your office and but also kind of focusing in on this?
Unfortunately, I think that when staff could have saved more money was at the beginning of the process. And when we were doing the General Plan Advisory Committee and all of those meetings, I think that was when there could have been some cost savings. And now at this point, we really need to leave it up to the professional consultants, because we're talking about, greenhouse gas analysis and the traffic analysis and items that we need the professional consultants and the scientists to deal with.
Are you be able to oversee the timelines and the expenses of this?
Yes.
All right. I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public? Former Supervisor Lowe.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
This will be my final comments for this year, hopefully. I think the board also needs to keep in mind that once they've gone through this process, there still has to be the process of the zoning and bringing the zoning all. So the 200,000 is not going to be the end of the money spent on this process. The other thing that I would like to comment on is, since we are going to be hiring a local firm, is there something in the agreement that says that they cannot do work for applicants for a period of time to keep arm's length? I remember with the city of Hollister and one of their general plans that they used a traffic consultant, and then that traffic consultant stepped in and did all of the traffic work for anybody that wanted to do a project, and suddenly things just got really muddy with the way those reports came out. And so I think it's really important that we put some kind of timeline on saying that this consultant cannot do environmental work for applicants, just to keep the water very clear and no conflicts involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good morning, Chairman Botello, supervisors, staff. My name is Christina Chavez Wyatt, and I'm the Executive Director of San Benito County Business Council. I'd like to commend you by bringing forth a very reputable local firm to complete our general plan. As you know, especially the members of the Business Council are concerned about having our general plan be completed in a comprehensive, prudent, and timely manner, but it's also very important that we get it done in a very legally defensible manner, which is one of the reasons why it's going to cost some money to make sure we have a document that's going to be able to stand the test of time and a lot of interest, specifically from outside of our community that's looking to sue us regarding growth and economic development. I also think it's very important to note that we need to ensure that we're using the best available, most current data in completing our plans, specifically those for population projections. And also regarding the cost to complete, I'd like to just specifically note you have competing communities to the north and the south in Monterey and Santa Clara counties, cities of Gilroy and Salinas that are spending $200,000 to $300,000 in completing only one element of their general plans. So as far as $200,000 is concerned, it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, and it could go a long way to get staff brought back to our county. but it's a very important invest to be made in a very important document that's going to be having important implications about how we're able to invest in ourselves for the next 15 to 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond Hollister, maybe we'll go out on a friendlier note than the 156 discussion, which I hate and keeps coming back. I think, frankly, I think we underestimated the cost. Here's the document. It's supposed to have 15 or 30 years. It has the word environment in it. As soon as you put the word environment in it, last night at the City Council, Hollister, we were talking about they had to hire a couple of biologists to see if there were red-legged frogs out at the airport before they could finish the airport project. The two biologists, $60,000. Okay? And if they have to come back look in the hole again, it's another $60,000. It has the word environment in it. Also, the way the general plan process works, it essentially becomes an open-ended plan of which you have no control. You say potato, somebody says potato, and the next thing you know, you're in there reevaluating everything. And that goes for every comment, every change. And if you never made any changes, you wouldn't have a good plan. So you have to make changes. You put out the initial plan. People come in and say, well, that's wrong. You look at it, you go, yeah, I agree. Let's change it. You change it, all of a sudden, the clock starts ticking in. You got to roll back again. I'm not one to say $200,000 is not a lot of money. I wish I had $200,000 to spare. I'm going to say that for environmental things and for things that are open-ended like this, $200,000 is not a lot of money. And $1.2 million to do a general plan for a what do we got? What's the value for the assessor here? $6 billion or something like that? Some $6-7 billion. I mean, you're talking about $1 million to do a general plan that covers 1,399 square miles and currently 56,000 people and all these roads and all this environmental stuff. The truth of the matter is, I think we just underestimated what it was going to cost. I'm sure there's some other issues and there are bumps in the road that shouldn't have been there. But in the end, it's very hard to come up with a number. This is this kind of an open-ended commitment. You have no control over what's going to happen to a lot of it. So I wouldn't be beating myself up too badly. I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned. I'm just saying slapping ourselves around probably is not the right answer for this, because I think we just lowballed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Would you like to, County Council, address one of the speaker's concerns as far as the consultant doing work, I guess, after this project, or?
Yeah, in the contract that's before the board, there is a conflict of interest provision that binds the consultant and the consultant subcontractors from engaging in any work which would be in conflict with the county during the term of this contract. There is nothing in the contract that prohibits the consultant from taking on clients' processing projects after the expiration of this contract occurs, so after the approval of the general plan. That, as far as I know, that issue was never discussed with the consultant, and Mr. Groves is here. He might want to speak to it. How big of an issue that is, only he can answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, board members, welcome. Happy holidays. Thanks for having me. And thanks for selecting EMC Planning Group, a local firm. And, we've spent a lot of time in the county, working in this county and supporting you. One of the reasons we put in the fee ordinance component of this to allow you to defer payment was because I've sat here for so many board meetings and watched the struggles you have with budget. And so it's really us saying, what can we help the community with in terms of contributing back? In terms of the cost for something like this, it's very undervalued. I mean, this general plan should have cost the county between $2 and $3 million. And the fact that it's $1.2 million, it's, you know, I know it's a lot of money, but it is what it is to do a general plan. It's a very expensive process. To the question with regard to conflict of interest, and that's why it came up and was asked to come up, we are only representing currently one private entity in the county at this point in time, and that is the Fairview Corners property with Gavilan College. We still have a contract, even though Fairview Corners specific plan and environmental document were approved by this board, we still have a contract with them to finish the habitat conservation plan. So we're working on, as I mentioned when I made the presentation on Fairview Corners, the first habitat mitigation bank in the county. And so we're currently doing that habitat conservation plan and working with Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Game, State Fish and Wildlife now. We're working with those agencies to get that approved. Once that's approved, then we won't have any other private contracts in the county at this point in time. So that's my disclosure. I can put it in writing if you'd like with regard to that disclosure. One other comment was made that I want to make sure we're clear about on the record. If Byron and the planning department asked me to write an environmental document on another project, just like the city of Hollister, we're on-call consultants to the city of Hollister. We write environmental documents in the city of Hollister. If he asked me to write an environmental document on behalf of the county, under contract to the county, that is not a conflict of interest in any way. So, and I would expect that I will be asked to do some other things for the county as we're moving along. There's other projects that are going to come forward to the county. So I do not want to be limited to just this contract in taking on this contract. So doing environmental work for the general plan, doing environmental work for specific projects, as long as it's under a county contract and I'm being directed by your planning department, is totally appropriate and not a conflict of interest. Any other questions?
Is there any questions from the board? And, you know, I appreciate your comments, and I do probably understand now that, you know, you probably gave us a real fair price to complete this general plan. And is there, you know, a way that as you accept work, as maybe a disclosure of the type of environmental work, that to make sure that we don't have a conflict where the public doesn't have that concern about what's going on privately with your firm working for other private jobs, and how it relates to the county and its efforts to complete this general plan? Does that make a sense?
It makes total sense. There should not need to be any disclosure with regard to any other contracts I sign with the county, is what I'm suggesting. I shouldn't have to disclose those. I'm happy to disclose them, but I shouldn't have to disclose them because there's no conflict of interest. If I sign a contract or propose to sign a contract with a private entity, for example, Steve talked about bringing out this proposal for, you know, this RFP. You know, I have a client that might be interested in that particular piece of property to do something that might be very interesting for the county and generate a number of jobs, 50-plus jobs. You know, I'd like to see that RFP. I might make a choice to do that. I'm happy to disclose that both in writing and verbally at the board if you'd like me to do that as those kinds of things occur within the county.
Yeah, I don't foresee any problems or issues, but maybe that's not a bad solution, to just have some sort of disclosure. That's all it is.
Fine to do it. I do it all the time. It's a regular procedure for me in terms of those kinds of contracts.
I would just suggest that if Mr. Groves is comfortable with that and the board wants to have that extra level of transparency, then if and when those situations occur, you should then draft a letter to the planning director, and we will then ensure that that gets on the agenda in the consent or regular agenda so that it's brought to the board's attention.
That's
And
fine.
I really hope that you do have something to disclose, because then it shows something that's happening here.
Never know. And can I raise just one thing that I will raise for with you and the Planning Commission when we have our first joint? And that was something that Byron said. I just want to put an exclamation point on it, and that is the lot of the concern that I hear from board members and have heard from board members is about the time frame. We want to get this done, and I've heard it over and over again. And I just want to say, to get this done in the next 10 months plus, 10 to 12 months, and I think we can do it in 10. To get this done in 10 months, it's a little bit is dependent on you, and it's dependent on you making decisions about particularly landowner requests, because you're going to have people coming to you saying, hey, I want to put this in and I want to change this. And Byron said it, every change that you make has a ripple effect all the way through. So I would like to set up the process with Byron to have the front part of this, the first several months, be we're going to make some decisions. Here's the changes to the general plan. Here's landowner requests. This is how we're going to go about it, and then we're going to cut it off. And that's when you have your full project description. Then we'll do the environmental document so that we're separating those two processes. So be thinking about how you want to handle landowner requests. That's my biggest message to you, so that we can handle them quickly, efficiently, and in the early part of this process. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a great holiday.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
I just have one more comment, if I could, Mr. Chair. Byron made a comment that we need to leave it up to the consultant. You know, you were asking about whether he's going to be overseeing it, and he is. But I really want to express that I don't want to tie the hands of the consultant. I think we have hired somebody that is very good, that knows general plans, that knows the county, and that is going to move us forward in the right direction. Let's give him that opportunity to do that. I want to have reports, and if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to see us get an update every month as we have, so that we don't get behind. But let's leave the consultant to do their work. I think they can, and they will. So just want to put that message out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board?
I'm just laughing because listening to Michael and then listening to you is like our dollars just went up. Just
No, they're actually going to stay down by giving them that, letting them use their expertise, and us not constantly, giving them more things to do. They have a process, and I think they can meet our deadlines if we allow them to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? If not, we'll go ahead and take an action.
I'll move per staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oppose? Hearing none, and we'll go to closed session. County Council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 26 and 27 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 26 is to confer with its labor negotiators. The designated agency representatives are Dania Torres-Wong, Allison Hauk, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Mark Gregerson, and Georgia Cochran. The employee organizations involved are the Institutions Associations, Law Enforcement Management, Management Employees Group, SEIU Local 521, the General Unit Employees, SEIU United Long-Term Care Workers Local 6434. The authority for this closed session is found in California Government Code Section 54957.6. Agenda item number 27 is to meet in closed session regarding the public employee discipline/dismissal/release. The authority to meet in this closed session is found in Government Code Section 54957. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from the public on the closed session items as noted? If not, we'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
Okay. Jaime.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk to Byron very quickly.